welcome everybody to this meeting of Finance and Policy for Tuesday 18th of March. Welcome to presenters from Great South who will be presenting later in the agenda, and welcome to those who are joining us on live stream. Michelle, do we have any apologies? Thank you. Thank you. Moved Councillor Ludlow, seconded Reverend Cook. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Any declarations of interest, councillors? No? Great. No public forum today, so we will move on to the confirmation of the minutes of Finance and Policy of the 19th of November 2024. If somebody would like to move that they are a true and correct record.
I'll move, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Seconded Councillor Dermody. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. No one opposed, no abstaining. Thank you. So we are moving on now to item 5, the 2024-25 quarter 2 performance, Great South update. Chami and Suzanne, welcome to the meeting and welcome to the table.
Kia ora. Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everybody. As always, it's a pleasure to be here. One of the favourite things that I have to do as CE of Great South is to present our actions against our statement of intent. I understand that we have very limited time, and I thank you, Chair, for extending it just a wee bit, because I did want to go through some of the stuff
That's
that we've
fine.
been doing. I will go through the presentation as per usual and then take some questions at the end, if that's okay.
That's great. Thank you very much.
So, as you know, everything that we do at Great South is to ensure that we support even better lives through sustainable regional development. Our priorities, as agreed to and originally set by our shareholders a year and a half ago, I think now, still revolves around the 4 pillars of regional development leadership, regional promotion, business support and diversification, and Net Zero Southland and the decarbonisation journey we support our businesses with. I'll touch on each of these 4 pillars very, very briefly. But if I could just draw the Councillor's attention to our statement of intent for 24-25 year, I submitted our accountability report, which I'm assuming has been distributed to the Council, and you'll be aware of our achievements against them. We had 36 outcomes reported in that accountability report, and what I've got here is just a very, very high level of some of the key areas. So under regional development leadership, we work in 3 areas: data and DISH. As you will be well aware, we successfully launched the Data Insights Southland Hub in November last year. We have our first report compiled, which I'm very excited to share. I do have a couple of copies which I will leave on the table for councillors to review. The reason why we don't want these printed, because this should be coming from the website and the DISH platform, because they will have up-to-date information. So this is just for the first quarter. We wanted you to see what it looked like, and it enables us to, over a period of time, engage and understand the trends and directions and outcomes from some of the activities that we undertake in tourism, economic development, so on and so forth. Aquaculture, the shareholders requested us to look at aquaculture and how to establish an aquaculture, a more vibrant aquaculture industry in the region. We have undertaken several stakeholder interviews with industry partners as well. We are now compiling that feedback, and we will be taking a deep dive into what are the key issues that we need to look at going forward. So as can be seen in the diagram up there, there is a 6-stage approach to developing the aquaculture strategy for our region. Housing, again, housing we are just facilitating a process to establish a boundaryless housing plan. This is with the view to making it easier for the market, that is our developers and our builders, to build within the region. Regional promotions, we've had a significant number of outcomes that have resulted in driving visitor numbers to our region. Through the tourism report you will see, and I would encourage councillors to go on to the website and have a look at the report. Through the report we can see that for the last calendar year, for 2024, visitor spend has grown to 354 million. Events and business events have been areas of focus as well to drive tourism in our region, and it is really pleasing to see that Invercargill City in particular has done really well overall. Between October and December last year, regional events with over 500 attendees had increased considerably. The regional number grew by 42.9%, and for Invercargill, this grew by 56% to 39 events overall. The business events grew by 27% to 47 in total last year, and everyone will be familiar with the impacts that we felt in the city when we had the tech conference here in August. So that's just one example of how business events will drive economic growth in our region. Great South has administered the Regional Events Promotion Fund on behalf of the region, and for Invercargill City, we were able to bring in an additional $60,500 for promoting some of our key events. That was about 54% of the total amount that had been allocated for the region. So I'd like to really point out here to the council that these details and stats were possible because of the information we capture and review through DISH. And regular monitoring and evaluation of these key indications will support us to give strong and reliable information to support decision making. That will make us agile. And I can tell you from many comments that we've received from across the country through our EDA partners and our RTO partners, we are the MV because we have this data available now. Business support and diversification. I believe I did share with the councils that our BP program was being reviewed by the government. It is likely that there'll be more information that comes through in the next month or so. However, at this point in time, RBP MB has extended the contract for RBP up until the 31st of December. Originally, it was meant to end on the 30th of June. There's a small business advisory group meeting on the 24th of March. That group has a new minister, Chris Penk, one of the new ministers from the reshuffle earlier this year. So I'll be able to report back to the council on where this RBP program grows. Unfortunately, they did cancel the Callaghan funding, and what this means for us is that Invercargill, we were able to support $240,000 in research and development funding through Callaghan. So it is now a fund that is no longer available for our businesses, which is a real shame. You can see the number of engagements and business consultations we had for the year, for the period, and we also continue to deliver some of business capability building events for our small and medium businesses. So finally, really touching on Net Zero Southland, we continue to work on the regional energy strategy. We're building our energy profile for the region, and we continue to deliver our decarbonisation workshops. I believe we alluded to the carbon-related disclosures that exporters are needing to make when they move into certain markets. Hopefully we'll be able to bring a workshop to our exporters to identify and support them with those disclosures. We are supporting developing woody biomass, and as the boilers that we have are being converted, the demand for woody biomass is growing considerably. We are also progressing the region's emission report, and due to the increasing plantation of carbon forests, we have seen quite a significant reduction in our carbon emissions for the region. However, the full report will come to you before the end of the year, because we're still waiting on some data from MPI and Ministry for the Environment. So as identified, this is really a high-level synopsis of the delivery of outcomes that we've had against our statement of intent. I am really pleased to note that the 36 KPIs we did a report on in our accountability report, we do have really good traction, and I'm quite confident that we will meet our KPI outcomes before the end of the year. Just one final thing, that is just to remind the council that, you know, after the restructure of the business last year, our staff have integrated and come back into it. We've repositioned ourselves. As you know, there was about 25 positions either made redundant or not filled with due to natural attrition. The current number is settling in really well, and the outcome is that we're able to get on and do the work for our region as you have instructed us to do. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Chami. Councillors Chami and Suzanne are available for questions, so are there any questions? Councillor Pottinger.
Thank you, Chair. Two questions. First one around the carbonisation, planting forestry. Is this on non-productive land, like no productive farmland is being used for forestry?
Currently what we have identified is there is a portion of productive land that is being converted. Various reasons for that, mostly around succession planning for farmers as they're growing older. It just seems to be easier to move into carbon forestries, but that full analysis will come through to you, Councillor Pottinger, once we finish the
So how does that comply with the land use capability rating on the land?
I'm not exactly sure, so I will have to get back to you on that.
Which basically states if you're 1, 2 or 3, you can only do farming
in a certain number.
Yeah, okay. The other question is regarding this move away from coal to boilers and stuff. Now, down at Open Country, down at Arua, the milk factory, they're changing to electricity. Okay, so I'm just, and obviously you mention of other people changing as well. Where is the electricity generation going to come from? Because we're not building any more dams, and I don't think we can. With the whole of New Zealand, with the surge to go to electricity, are we at risk of not having enough come a dry winter, dry cold winter? Where's it all going to come from?
So there are several new propositions being considered at the moment. However, with the energy strategy, what we are undertaking at this point in time is to look at current demand, future demand, likely future demand, including speaking with the likes of TY, understanding like some of the bigger projects that may come through, like for example data grid, and what they want to do if they were to come into our city. They need 240 megawatts of power, and where would that come from, and how would that be supplied? The conversations are currently being had at the moment, so we will keep the council updated as soon as we know anything more.
But that's the scary thing, is that there's going to be this massive lag of things are going to be built, and things are going to be done, and things are going to be consuming power. But the time between like the power consumed by a data thing is massive.
Correct.
So it just worries me that that the cart, I think, is slightly ahead of the horse.
And I think
by
that's
about
why
50 metres.
And that's why I think it's really important that when we're doing these analyses, that it is a region-wide evaluation, because not necessarily will all of the power generated or requirements be in one place. It has to be looked at probably from a lower South Island perspective, and that's why the likes of PowerNet, the likes of any of those energy providers, Mercury, Contact Energy, any of those people.
PowerNet's only a distributor. It's not.
It's
It
only a
doesn't
distributor.
generate. No.
Yes, correct. But we need to, because they're the ones who are doing the evaluation of what the probable
Okay.
increase is, what the probable demand will be.
So if we're sitting there at night, rugged up, thank God I've got a Yunker, we don't talk to you guys. No.
Thank you, Councillor Pottinger. I think we're not going to
Appreciate it.
solve the generation problem today. Thank you, Charmy. Councillor Ludlow, I had you next.
Bearing in mind that this is the second quarter progress report, are there any areas that you're reporting on where you see a change going back to amber during the third quarter, or is everything likely to progress?
Everything is likely to progress.
Okay, thanks, Shami.
Councillor Dermody and then Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And look, thanks, Shami. Just want to acknowledge it. It's obviously been pretty difficult for you and the staff over the last wee while, so just acknowledge that. A couple of things around the Callaghan Fund and then DISH. The Callaghan Fund, what percentage, I think it was 230,000, as a percentage of what they distribute across the country, what percentage would we have received in Southland of that fund?
I don't have that figure,
Yeah.
which I can look at. We'll have to go and get it back from them retrospectively. The problem with the Callaghan funding was that it is for bigger enterprises,
Yeah.
whereas the majority of our businesses here are all small and medium enterprises. So the 240,000 was distributed amongst only 4 entities here.
Yeah.
But those are the entities that can take on research students and research fellows in their organisation, and then therefore they get paid for it.
Yeah. I wonder whether it's worth giving consideration to whether we should try and align what we receive in line with our contribution to GDP. And I think our contribution is about 15% as a region.
Correct.
So, we should probably have a target, I believe, or Great South should have, trying to attract, the equivalent amount of funding into research and R&D and investment.
Yeah.
Proportionate. I think that would be a good sort of investment, or it may be a percentage of it, but yeah, if you could take that away and give some
Yeah,
thought
no,
to that.
definitely will. Thank you.
The DISH thing, obviously that's been a big investment, you're very excited about it. How would something like that contribute back to the overall goal of, economic growth and sustainability?
It's really about being able to monitor and transparently report on how well we have done. It will give us trends. It will identify if campaigns have worked, initiatives have worked, whether, what are the sort of inherent problems that we may be seeing. The reports that are identified through DISH cover vast range of areas, including there will be some information around housing, eventually some workforce. We don't have community and well-being because that's not our mandate there, but there definitely could be an opportunity to add some sort of links or data from wherever we need it. But what it does is gives people who are looking at Southland an opportunity to look at us as a cohesive one.
Right.
And understand what are the opportunities, what kind of workforce we have, what kind of, what are the booming industries, what are the potentials, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So it does give us a really rich source of information to make really good decisions and how we invest and how we progress our region further.
Yeah, so just a couple of questions. So it's a lag data thing? Yeah.
Correct.
So it would be good to see, given the investment and excitement you've got around it going forward and the reporting, sort of, how that data has led to investment or attraction of greater funding, those sorts of things. I think that would give good confidence to all the stakeholders that that investment's really paying off.
Yeah.
So it'd be good to see that in the reporting.
Certainly, we will try, depending on what we have
I appreciate it.
available.
It may take some time, but
Yeah.
I think it would be a good reinforcement in the investment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Chami. As you know, the Southland councils have worked jointly to develop a strategy for climate change.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you were here last, I expressed some concern that we should avoid there being 2 strategies.
Correct.
The work that Great South is doing, actually work together with that council strategy. Can you just comment on whether that has been occurring?
Yes, absolutely. So we've had a lot more engagement with the Environment Southland. We've been involved with the regional working group meetings. There's a hui that's scheduled to be held, and we're incorporating the information that we have in with the information that they have, so that it is a cohesive picture. The work that we do, as you know, Tom, is with businesses predominantly, so all of that will be included and given to Environment South. So we have that one cohesive strategy going forward.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chami. Reverend Cook.
Kia ora, Chami. We'll go back to forestry if we may.
Yes.
The land diversification worries me,
Yes.
but even more than that, the impact on our roading of the logging trucks.
Mm-hmm.
I may have had an adventure down Bluff Road yesterday, which
I
brought
did.
this to the front of my mind. When we're looking at the pros and cons of diversification of forestry, apart from the fact that it's not diversified forestry, it's actually pinus and not actually encouraging Indigenous, a lot of focus on ETS. What about the infrastructure and what about the impact on community, and where do we see that start to show in the analysis of this?
To your point, I think it's very, very important that we actually look at this more cohesively. Anything that has happened with diversification into forestries from farmland now have been private investment, private decisions from people who own their own farms, and they're taking those decisions as they rightfully can. However, the overall picture for infrastructure, the pros and cons, as you mentioned, Evelyn, but also community well-being, then what about the impact it has on our current agriculture and the drop of livestock numbers, and then how that will impact on our freezing works or any of the other supply chain businesses. So I think there is quite an important and urgent need to have that looked at in a much greater detail. Given that I've already done the statement of intent draft, it is something that we will probably be talking about with the joint shareholders to see if there's appetite from the shareholders for us to undertake that piece of work on behalf of the region, so that we do know and have, and we're armed to be able to counteract as many of those negative impacts as possible, but also take advantage of any of the opportunities that may come up with them.
Yes, one of the conversations that came up with me was about the impact on service industry businesses, that some businesses may no longer be viable, which would affect inter-city businesses as well.
Absolutely.
So,
and also,
but thank you for the mahi that you're doing, the insights that we're getting. I just wanted to address the fact that I don't see the conversation happening on this page yet.
yeah,
Kia ora.
kia ora.
Mayor Clark.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add to what Rangi and Reverend Cook have both raised, we had a presentation at the Mayoral Forum recently by our local MP, Penny Simmons, and what she said was that which is what Rangi raised, the carbon forests on LUC 1 through 3 is now restricted. So what she said was, in lay terms, that you could only plant out 25% of your farm, and it had to be the sort of the most agricultural, non-friendly part of your farm. So you just couldn't plant the whole farm out, which is what's been happening before, where farmers are not going commercial in forestry, they're just planting them out, getting the credits and not pruning the trees, not putting the roads in, just leaving them for a couple of decades, which makes the quality of the wood at the other end pretty poor. And I think the other issue that Rangi raised...
Mayor Clark, can you...
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
One other issue that Rangi raised was the issue of future power sources. And again, we've had some significant players come into that area. I know that Ngāi is quite heavily invested in wind, and so are several of the larger gen-tailers. So that gen-tailer is a generator and a retailer, so some of the big power companies are also investing as well, because your report a couple of years ago identified that by 2030 we will run short of power.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
But that is being reviewed at this point.
Yep.
Your worship.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pottinger, did you have another question?
Yeah, look, it was just to follow up on the power thing. I see Simon Watts, the Energy Minister, spoke yesterday and said there will be companies shutting down because they cannot afford the power this winter, and there will be energy cuts because there is a power crisis, he says. So for every new boiler conversion, fantastic. So, yeah.
Noted. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Council, for having us, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you very much for both being here. Good to have you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to the next item, which is the 2024-25 Quarter 2 performance. Now, Jamie, that's...
Need to move the receipt of the
You've got a
tour.
couple-
Sorry,
Move.
sorry.
Second.
Thank you. Moved councillor Ludlow, seconded councillor Bond. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And Tricia. Right, three presenters. I'll let you lead off.
Good afternoon, councillors. So this is the report on the Quarter 2 performance. The reason for the delay in getting this report to you is that because it sits over, it's at 31 December, by the time we get it ready for you, and with this committee meeting every other month, it was not possible to do it within the time available. We are looking at the meetings going forward, if this meeting cadence stays the same, so that you are getting it in a much more timely fashion, given that we're just about in the last quarter, the last month of this quarter. So I'll give the very highlights and then look to see whether Rhiannon wants to add anything around service performance on top of that. When we look at performance for that first half of the year, we are sitting at about at 83% of our levels of service that were agreed in the LTP are being met. That is slightly ahead of the overall target for the year, but it has dropped from quarter one. In the terms of capital delivery, we have delivered 91% of the budget for that first half of the year, noting that the budget is not even. As is the case with council delivery, it's slow in the first two quarters and ramps up significantly in quarter three and quarter four. That spend for the first half of the year is $19.7 million, just to put a dollar value on that as well. We are expecting that to increase, and as people will have seen around the streets, there's a significant amount of roading work that gets done in January, February and early March in the city when the weather allows it. When I look at the financial performance, we are sitting slightly better than the original LTP plan at present by $200,000. So we're marginally better. However, I do note that our revenue is down. Part of this is timing, but it's also noticeable that we have a lower level of fees and charges revenue coming into the organisation than what we had planned for. Some of these we have addressed in the budget changes that were discussed with council as part of preparing the annual plan and setting that base position for the annual plan, but it is being noticeable so far. In relation to the budget changes that are within this report, those are the budget changes that were discussed through workshops to give us our opening position for the annual plan basis, and reflects both where situations have changed after we put the LTP in place. It includes the significant increase that we had in insurance and some of the noted errors that were identified in relation to the budgeting at LTP time. Rhiannon, do you want to add anything in relation to performance?
Thank you, Patricia. So through you, Chair, just to note that we're seeing the normal kind of trends that you would see in quarter two, and we'll expect to see in quarter three as well, that as some performance indicators become clearer as to whether they will or won't be achieved by the end of the year, we are in a slightly better position than we were in quarter two of the last financial year. The report covers off those areas of change, so happy to take questions if there's any areas of specific interest. The one point I would just like to speak to is in relation to satisfaction, which this committee has discussed quite in depth at a few previous meetings. So first of all, we are seeing a slight uptick in satisfaction right across the activities, which is positive to see. And we have also undertaken on-site surveying at Splash Palace, which has had a positive impact on satisfaction. So you will recall we've discussed at this committee a number of times since moving to the new methodology of online service surveying that there is always a inbuilt negativity bias to online responses. So being able to undertake that on-site surveying at Splash Palace brought up, you can see the difference in comparison of satisfaction. So we are in the process of recontracting, so we are looking with survey providers at whether we can add a weighting, and I think this will give a clearer indication as to what that negativity bias actually means in practice. So I think a really positive story there from people on site at Splash Palace, 100 responses to the survey there.
We're happy to take questions now, Chair.
Okay, councillors, any questions? Reverend Cook.
Oh, I have a survey question. The poll, you did the in-person one. We used to do in-person on the buses as well. Is one of the things that you're looking at with the recontracting, looking at a mixture of online and in-person? Because I tend to think that we get a lot of negativity about the buses from people who never set foot on them. I'd really like to know what the people who use the buses want to say. I mean, I guess people sometimes don't use them because it's not convenient to them and they should be able to express that. But I am really interested in what the people who do use it, how much it is or isn't meeting their needs, whether they adapt themselves to what we offer as opposed to what they would prefer to have.
Yes, through you, Chair, really good question. So just to reassure the committee members again that the online survey is seeking feedback from users of the service. So the satisfaction is based on people who answer that they have used the service. However, you're absolutely correct that that person may not have used the service recently. They may have used it a while ago, or their memory may not be particularly good, and we're seeing that in some cases. So that's why on-site surveying is really positive. There is on-site surveying undertaken on the buses, separate to the residents survey, which happens through the summer, and that has continued to happen each year. Whether and how much on-site surveying we can undertake is really dependent on budget. This on-site surveying was council undertook with engagement staff, working with the survey provider to ensure that it still met their requirements for sampling, but it is additional resource each time to apply that. So that's something that we're looking at, and that's why I'm really keen to move probably towards weighting if we can find a statistically sound way to do that, because that means we could rotate through, do some on-site sampling on a one-off occasion, and then apply that weighting, which would give a more accurate picture.
Oh, kia ora, thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Dermody.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks for the report. Just with respect, Patricia or Jamie, to the financials, I want to pick up on a couple of comments in the report. One is on page 5 of 7 around cash flow forecasting will also improve. And the point 4 in the capital on page 7 of the report around the duplication of 1.2 million within the budgets. I just want to get assurance, I suppose, that we've got good controls financially around our operational and capital expenditure within the general operations. I think through our larger capital projects and those things that we're doing through the PMO, or perhaps with roading, we've got some good controls. But on smaller projects, how much control do we have, or visual control around what's being spent, the budget to actuals around projects and those sorts of things?
So as the delegations work for council staff, they cannot spend unless it is budgeted to be spent. So applying the delegations. So if you have a project and you had a budget and you are beyond that budget, it should be being reported up to group managers.
It should be being reported, or it is being reported?
Well, it should be, but also it's up to the level of spend on an item.
Yeah.
It determines the system, it goes through the system, automatically takes it through to the right person to sign off.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of controls going in there,
Okay.
but a lot of it will be reactive given the nature of us going back, and the team do go back and look at what the spend is against contract, and you'll see that starting to come through as the procurement team move into that phase of the maturity. So there are controls in place.
Yeah.
But we will continue to be, it's one of those things that continues, it's a continual improvement thing.
So with those reviews that you'll conduct, so what I heard you say was that, so the operational budget will happen, and then your team will come in and just have a review of those to see how that's performed against the budgets?
Yes.
So when would we see that through this committee?
So that happens at a management level, so that's part of the management reviews. You're seeing it at a total council level.
Yeah.
Now, because you are seeing the financials, the total financial spend against what the plan is. Each group manager has a meeting they have a dedicated finance support staff that they are meeting with on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
To discuss their spend from their groups against their plan. So there is that rigour coming through. You see it at a governance level, at the highest level. You are not seeing how much my procurement team has spent against the budget. You see how much the corporate services spend against their budget.
Yeah, and I suppose, and I know it's a bit of a bow to draw, but I will draw it. You know, if you look at that duplication of 1.2, that's nearly 2% of rates, isn't it? So everything else being equal, that would be could be a 2% change in our rating. Am I reading that right?
So that was a capital duplication. So that comes through.
Okay, so it'd have a lesser effect.
So it's a much lesser impact. But
Yeah.
this is the nature of our budgets across the organisation and the number of budget lines that there are. I think how many? We've got hundreds of thousands of budget lines.
Yeah.
That we will from time to time have a duplication. I'm quite honest here that from time to time we'll double count. We will also miss things as well.
But what you're indicating is that there is a fairly robust belt and braces approach
Yes.
in place to catch any
And we are
such.
we are continually updating that and changing it, much to the angst of some people. It will continue to change because as our systems change, as our processes change, but also as people change, that the necessary checks and balances required from a finance function also need to change with those in order to find those things that we need to be looking out for.
And that's so that your comment around things improving is to that effect.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, just a quick question, I may have forgotten, but sure, years ago we spent several $100,000 building the hydro slides at Queen's Park, at Splash Palace, and I go there quite regularly, and I was always meant to have a reasonably decent revenue stream going forward from memory, and as I go there, I've never actually seen it operating. Is there any reason why it doesn't operate?
I will take that one back to the GM for that area, who fortunately is at another meeting at present, to come back with an answer on that one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Clark, you were next on the
Yeah,
list.
on page 6 of your report, you've mentioned a couple of things here, roadmap to renewals, so that there's some delay in the experience at the museum, slower than provide engagement by iwi supporting team. Now, you're commenting up to December, is that still a current position?
This paper's been written as at December.
Okay.
I do believe there is some further updates coming through to council next week in relation
Okay.
to that.
The second one is the issue of the CCTVs. So when you say 80% of the CCTVs locations were live, you're talking stage 1, not 2 or 3.
Correct.
And you say that the remaining ones will be go live during quarter 3. Well, we're just about the end of quarter 3, so are we live on stage 1, or are there still some not live, do you know?
As I understand it, we're live on all now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All of
Thank you.
stage 1.
All of stage 1.
Yeah.
Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. Patricia, the approach of revising the budget as you go is something that I haven't really seen before. I mean, normally what I have been used to is that you set a budget, you then change the forecast through the course of the year so that you can, see how circumstances have changed. But to retrospectively change the budget, which is actually what we've been asked to do here, is not is that the approach that council has always taken? It's not an approach I've seen in the commercial sector.
It is an approach I've seen. In essence, what we are doing is we keep the plan. So the plan number is the one that never changes. So that's what is agreed in the LTP we call the plan. So that's the budget as you would understand it in the corporate sector. What we then say is, as we go through the year, we make some minimal changes to it, and we are trying to reduce those to only those that are by far necessary. That is what we call budget changes, but when we come to do our statutory reporting, it's always back against the planned number, so that, or the annual plan or the LTP plan, depending on which year we're in. So that's the one, when we do our statutory reporting, it's always against that number, not against that amended number, or the management number, if you want to call it,
Okay.
which we call the budget.
I do understand the explanation. I'm just not quite sure why you take that approach rather than just use budget and forecast. But anyway, accept that's what's the...
That's answered your question, has it? Did I see, Councillor Bond, did I see your hand up there?
No.
No. Okay.
I'm getting cramps.
No other questions, councillors? Okay, we have some recommendations to receive the report and 3 recommendations on noting various matters, and then another recommendation to council. If someone would perhaps like to move 1 to 4. Reverend Cook. Thank you. Reverend Cook and Councillor Dermody. Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. No one against or abstaining, thank you. And the recommendation to council, recommendation 5, approving the budget adjustments outlined in the schedule of changes to the plan in quarter 2. I can have a mover and seconder for that. Thank you, Councillor Ludlow. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, I can see that.
Thank you, Councillor Dermody. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay. So for tab 7, the financial update, we have Jamie and Patricia remaining at the table. Thank you. Financial update at 31 January 2025, tab 7.
So this report goes into a couple of areas in more detail, but also outlines where we sit in a net debt position as at the 31st of January. We are sitting, at that point in time, we were sitting with debt of 143 million and cash investments of 55 million, giving us a net debt balance of 88 million, which is roughly where we expected we would be at this point. We were just in the process in February, March of having to potentially borrow more given the capital spend that we've had through the first half of the year. Other than that, we've also included within this the sensitive expenditure listing that takes us from 31 December through to 24th of February for noting, as well as an update of where we sit with debt management. And we do note that the total value of our debt is creeping up again. We will be looking through, especially if you're looking at rates debt, it is perhaps same trend that we would expect to see quarter on quarter, but it is perhaps higher than what it has been in the last couple of years. So not a lot that can be read into that at present, but we are keeping a very close watch on a number of those, and there are some that we're getting ready to take the next step action on as well. If there's any questions?
Okay, councillors, any questions? Councillor Dermody?
Yeah, so just on that last point, Patricia, sorry, what you said, rates debt?
Yeah, so if you look at the rates arrears, it's just
Oh,
confused.
right, okay, yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
yeah.
so
Yeah. No,
it
that's
goes,
fine.
it goes up and
I
down.
thought we had a new version of debt.
No, it's the rates
Yeah,
debt, so
no, I got it, yeah.
it's actually sitting higher than
Yeah.
where we probably, where it's been in the
Yeah.
last couple of years, but
Yeah,
that
sorry.
reflects that rates themselves have become higher.
Yes.
Any other questions, councillors? Patricia or Jamie, anything you want to say further about the risk pool scheme? Pretty
Risk
much
pool.
what we expected.
We were expecting there to be another call. There is still the risk of several more calls as those cases. So those councillors that have been around the table for a number of years will remember that the risk pool scheme was well used by most councils in the country as a mutual insurance for liability, predominantly building consenting liability. That scheme ended or closed about as the weather-tight claims were starting to hit the sector. They have managed to close out a number of years, but the recent Napier City Council case has opened a number. We had one call last year, and and they've now saying they've got about 4 open years, I think, from memory, on what was on that paper. So we could still be, we only ever pay based on our contribution into that, so as a percentage of that scheme for that year. So that's where the sector was in that. When that closed, everybody went to true insurance, if you want to call it. That was sort of more like a captive or self-insurance scheme. Or mutual insurance, I think, was probably the best way to describe risk pool. But now it's trying to close. It's not open to any new business. So it's simply trying to close out the old liabilities, which it has.
Do we have any sense of how many years it may take for this to come through? A couple of years?
I would say probably 3 to 4, given that there could be some more cases that end up in the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And they're also trying to claim from their reinsurers, which is also requiring, which can be a slow process.
Councillor Dermody?
So just so that the 2.49, that's divided by the members, right? So our contribution isn't
Yes.
2.4, yeah.
So I think our request was, what was it, 26,000? Yeah, we're 26,000.
Yeah.
Councillor, Mayor Clark?
Yeah, just back onto page 4 of your sensitive expenditure report, which is 109 of board books. There's a couple of errors there. So on the first part, on the 25th of January, you've got me down as going to a
Sorry,
combined...
Mayor Clark, can you pull your microphone?
Oh, sorry, you've got me going to, with some airfares to a combined sector meeting in Wellington. Well, I wasn't back on the 25th of January, so I assume Tom went. But then you've got another set of airfares directly on the same day going to LGNZ in Christchurch, so...
We'll check that, Mayor.
Yeah.
It may well be that that's when the expense was recorded, and it may be that's when the flights were booked.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
No other questions, councillors? Okay, we have recommendations to receive the report, to note current rate and state of council finances, note the current net debt and treasury position, note that it has reviewed the sensitive expenditure listing provided. If someone would like to move those 4 recommendations, thank you, Councillor Ludlow. Councillor Dermody, all those in favour?
Aye.
No one against or abstaining, thank you. And the recommendation to council to approve the budget adjustments outlined. If I can have a mover and seconder. Councillor Ludlow, Councillor Dermody. Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, councillors. Okay, that ends the if someone would like to move that we go into public excluded for the reasons outlined in our documents.
Happy to, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Reverend Cook.
Seconded.
Councillor Campbell. All those in favour? Aye.
Yeah, I'd
Mayor
like to
Clark.
raise an issue, Chair. I don't understand why the report in the tail end of the financial update for public excluded, which relates to consultants, contractors and legal fees, is in public excluded. That information has already been released a week ago. And I've had some discussion this morning with staff about this, or management I should say, and maybe one of the ways around that is to have a release date that follows after this meeting, so we can have the discussion in public excluded, but then the information's released.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. From the Chair, I'm satisfied that we have the validly stated reasons for this matter being in public excluded. I agree with you, of course, that there are appropriate times when information can be released, and that is something we may discuss as part of public excluded, but I'm comfortable that we have valid reason at present for this material being in public excluded. Okay.
I'll register a vote against that, thank you.
Okay, Mayor Clark's recorded his vote against the motion for going into public excluded. Okay, we thank you to all those who have attended on live stream. We're now in the public excluded